Ahoy, and welcome to the Jolly Reader. I'm your host, Captain Book. Okay, so I took Easter off, and then I ended up taking an extra week off because there has been some unexpected construction being done to my ship, aka house, where I record. So, thank you for being patient. I super appreciate it. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I've been putting updates up there, but I don't foresee a gap in episodes for this book, but there could be a potential gap between this book and the next book. It's really kind of unknown. I'm not really sure with the work being done. I won't be able to record if people are hammering and sawing and such, and we might be like at a hotel for a while. So just kind of heads up. Also, kind of because of that, this book, which is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, is going to be in 3 parts because shorter episodes will allow me to make sure they all get out on time with the construction being done. Also, this book's just really interesting, really well written, and there's a ton of characters. Ahoy, crew, here's the tea. No, really, I'm talking about tea right now. Plum Deluxe tea. It's a loose leaf tea, which is really easy to do. I'm never doing bag teas again. I'm telling you right now. Also, it's all hand blended, fresh, best ingredients. There's bold black teas. I like the Reading Nook blend black tea, and I'm not just saying that because the name's adorable. I'm saying that because I didn't know I liked black tea, but man, this went down smooth. It tasted great. They also have relaxing herbal blends, dessert teas. There's a vanilla sugar cookie dessert tea. It smells and tastes like a real sugar cookie. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they have a Tea of the Month club, which gets you free shipping and other amazing perks. I very much am going to continue to support this small business. And if you like to too, you can visit plumdeluxe.com/listen and use the code JOLLYREADER to save 12% on your first order. Tea makes a great gift. That's plumdeluxe.com/listen, JOLLYREADER. I think I'm going to go brew myself some now. Bye! So today we'll be covering about a third of it. It's chapter 1 through 8, pages 1 through 110. So, some things to look forward to: multiple mysteries, a lot of A names, a pickpocket, uncomfortable attractions, and a massive OMG, I can't believe she just said that moment, which is how we're ending this episode because it's just like too good to keep going. So, just kind of like to let you know how the book is set up. The chapters alternate between the 3 cousins' perspectives. So Millie, Aubrey, and Jonah all have their own chapters. And then also throughout, Allison, which is Millie's mom, has chapters, but it's from about, I'm not sure exactly, but about 20 years ago. She's 18 at the time. So it gives us perspective on both sides of things. So just kind of like a quick overview of like what the back cover would say is there's a grandma, and she disinherited her 4 kids, like seemingly for no reason. And out of those 4 kids, 3 of them had the cousins, and they get an unexpected letter inviting them to this like prestigious island that the grandma owns. And the parents want them to go so they can be like re-inherited, whatever. But there's a lot of like shady mystery things going on. So the book starts with a family tree. So it's Mildred is the grandma. And I don't even remember the grandpa's name. Hold on. Let me look. Abraham is the grandpa. And then they have 3 sons, Adam, Anders, and Archer. But Archer doesn't have kids, and he's the youngest. And then Allison, who's one of the only daughter, she's in the middle. She's just older than Archer. She has Millie, who's our first main character. And then we'll get into like how everyone's related like later on. It's just less confusing. I'm going to try to remind you, like if I say Adam, I'll be like, oh, that's Aubrey's dad, just so we can kind of stay on track. Also, just like a side note, the 4 kids, Adam, Anders, Archer, and Allison, are all a year apart in school, so they're really close together in age. So chapter 1 is Millie, who is Allison's daughter, like I said, but it's short for Mildred. So the grandmother is Mildred. So our main character, who's 17, I will be calling Millie, which is what they call her in the books. So she's named after her grandmother, shocker. And her parents are Allison, which I'm sure you guys know by now is my daughter's name, and Toshi Takahashi. And the family's name is Story. So she says she looks like a Story, but you can definitely tell she's Japanese too because of her father. And she has like a hyphenated name like Story Takahashi. And she says that her parents are amicably divorced and they live in Brooklyn. So it starts with Millie in a bar, and she's only 17, but she's trying to get older guys to buy her drinks, and there's like this super creepy guy. This is how we find out like her dad's Japanese, etc., etc. So this is like something her and her friends do for fun, apparently. But then this guy's being a creep, so she leaves because she's supposed to meet her mom at a nearby restaurant for dinner. Millie talks about how she goes to this fancy school, Prescott Academy, but she's an average student. And it's not because she's unintelligent. She just doesn't apply herself or whatever. So her parents care a lot about her education and kind of on her for it. She talks briefly about her parents' divorce, and basically her mom just like pulled away so much and then finally like filed for divorce, and her dad like was always really doting, and her mom's always kept her and her dad at arm's length, and it's all because of this whole situation with the grandmother who would be Allison's mom. So we'll get into that more, but they kind of explain like the Story family stuff. So the kids, being Allison and her siblings, grew up on a beachfront estate cat mint house on Gulf Cove Island. So basically the grandmother owns a resort for like the rich to go see. This is a lot like We Were Liars in the setup. Like they go to the island that the grandparents own and the cousins are there and they're figuring out the mystery of everything, except for we know the huge disappointment. It's not a mystery at all. This is really well written. This is a really good book, but it just reminds me of that. So bear with me. So Millie's grandfather, which would be Allison's father, died when Allison was a senior in high school. I'm just realizing that this happens. Oh no. So like the backflashes are like a couple months after the grandpa dies. And also I'm not like exactly sure like how he died or what caused his death. I might have to go back and look, but I feel like I would have written he died of a heart attack or whatever. So maybe that's part of the mystery. Anyways, 2 years after his death, Mildred, the grandmother, disowned all her children and cut them off completely out of the will. And she like stopped talking to them completely. Their only contact was through her lawyer, Donald Camden. And he would only give them one-line responses or Mildred hasn't changed her mind. But there's like this notorious note that was sent to all the kids that says, you know what you did. And that's like her reason for cutting them out. But we don't know. Hopefully we'll find out. So Allison claims that she cut them out because the kids didn't visit for Thanksgiving and Mildred was mad and lonely. Is like after the grandpa died, they all went to college and then they didn't come home or something. I don't know. Obviously, that's not the whole thing. And all the other, like Allison's siblings all claim, like, we don't know what that means. We didn't do anything. So Mildred has, the grandmother, no contact with any of her children for 24 years, no weddings, birth of grandchildren, none of that. But now she writes a letter to Millie, the granddaughter, and I will read it. It's on page 10. Dear Millie, we have, of course, never met. The reasons are complex, but as years progress, they become less important than they once were. As you stand poised on the threshold of adulthood, I find myself curious to know you. I own a property called Gull Cove Resort that is a popular vacation destination on Gull Cove Island. I wish to invite you and your cousins, Jonah and Aubrey, to spend this summer living and working at the resort. Your parents worked there as teenagers and found the environment both stimulating and enriching. I'm sure you and your cousins would reap similar benefits from a summer at Gull Cove Resort. And since I am not well enough to host guests for any length of time, it would afford me the opportunity to get to know you. I hope you accept my invitation. The resort's summer hire coordinator, Edward Franklin, will handle all necessary travel and logistics, and you may contact him at the email address below. Very sincerely yours, Mildred Story. Okay, so Allison wants Millie to go and basically get them back into the will, even though she doesn't outwardly say that. Millie's cousins, Jonah and Aubrey, will be there too, obviously, like the note said. Last time Millie saw Jonah, she was 8 and he tried to make her cry and he had an allergic reaction to a food that his mom warned him not to eat. Millie mentions that her mother is not close with her siblings anymore. And also there's a teardrop necklace that the grandmother gave Allison, and Millie has always wanted it passed down to her. I'm assuming in one of the backflashes we'll see that moment. We haven't yet. But anyways, Allison claims she's been waiting until Millie turns 21, but would give it to her now if she spent the summer with her grandmother. Millie is frustrated that her mother is trying to blackmail her, but also that it's going to work. Chapter 2, Aubrey. My first note says, I like Aubrey. She's a meek character that I'm sure will finally find her strength and stand up for herself at some point in the book, which she totally does. She nails it. I audibly gasped. So the chapter starts at her swim meet, the last one of the school year. I'm assuming they're juniors because she says she's not going to be on the team next year, which would assume she's going to be a senior next year. Anyways, her mom isn't there, which is unusual, but something's going on, so she's not surprised. Aubrey basically throws the race and finishes 7 out of 8, but she's usually a really good swimmer, and she's happy her coach is upset, but most of this chapter, things go unsaid, so it seems like Aubrey's in the right in her actions, but we're not really sure why. We feel like the coach deserves to be upset, but we don't know why that is. So Aubrey's boyfriend of 4 years, Thomas, picks her up, and she told him she's feeling sick, so she wants to leave the meet early, which she isn't. And then she notes that, I don't know, this is kind of random, but I just put it in there. She notes that she never gets sick, and it is opposite of the story side of the family, who are delicate flowers, and her mother are sturdy weeds. Maybe she's a weed. I don't know. It's just really interesting because it describes Millie being the most like the stories, and then Aubrey and Jonah not being like the stories, being more like their mothers. So it's just an interesting character development. Anyways, Thomas is oblivious and doesn't ask her what's wrong. He doesn't kiss her because she's quote unquote sick, but obviously something else is going on there. He's kind of avoiding her. He drives off quickly after he drops her off. It seems like he might want to break up with her, but we don't know. We still kind of don't know, but that's the vibes. But before he drops her off, in the middle of the drive home, Aubrey talks about her cousins since they're in a group text about their plans for traveling to the island, etc. She likes Millie. Same. Millie's awesome. She describes Millie as beautiful and looks like the story family, like I said, and Aubrey takes more after her mother. Jonah is annoyed by this whole summer thing and is mad because he was supposed to be at a competitive science camp. The girls think he's a jerk, but more in a playful way, I guess. They just don't know him very well. They have a separate texting about, Jonah's being a jerk. He's an idiot. Whatever. So she describes her aunt and uncles and father. So Adam is Aubrey's father, and he was the golden boy athlete. Anders is Jonah's father, and was the brilliant eccentric. Allison, who's obviously Millie's mother, was the reserved beauty, and Archer, who has no children and the youngest, is the charming jokester. What else is new? So classic, the eldest is golden boy, the youngest is the jokester, off the beaten path. Guess what I am in my family? I'm the youngest. Anyways, she told a story of Archer, who's the youngest, visiting them when she was young and playing with her and stuff, but now she's older, she realized he was drunk the whole time. Anyways, I'm not like that. So Aubrey's father, Adam, seems like the worst. Okay, this is kind of hard to explain, but he's an idiot. So he's been trying to write a book, be an author for 10 years, and then he finally wrote a bestseller, and then he's been spending another 10 years trying to write a sequel or something. So the book is about an athlete turned author with a bunch of adoring fans. It's supposed to be based on him, but it's not the reality of the situation. It's what he wants the situation to be. And he reads the book at least once a year. Ugh. That's just gross to me. So anyways, so it doesn't directly say this, but it's hinting that Adam cheated on Aubrey's mom, Megan, recently, because she's staying with her sister and stuff. Okay, so Adam says this is hard on everyone, and about the mom staying somewhere else or whatever. And Aubrey wants to scream that he's the one that caused the problem, but she just nods and goes to her room. She thinks about the "you know what you did" note from the grandmother, and how the father swore that him and his siblings did nothing, and the note didn't make sense. But she doesn't know what to believe because her dad has shown her how easily he can lie. He's super the worst character in the whole book. Chapter 3, Jonah. So I say Jonah's a weirdo in a good way. He's taking a car to the ferry and he has a collection of articles and things printed off about Gran and the cousins and the Story family. And he says when he's uncomfortable, he does research to calm him, which is totally like, that's what I tell my daughter. I go, if you're afraid of something, you're afraid of storms, then learn about them and you'll be less afraid of them. So that's totally valid. So anyways, he barely makes it to the ferry and he runs into Millie and she doesn't recognize him because it says like Jonah doesn't post on social media and stuff. And they've only been in this group text or whatever. So she describes him not being what she expected because he looks like a J. Crew model. And he weirdly finds her attractive, even though they're cousins. But he's also extremely annoyed by her. It's like this really weird interaction. And then I said, I'm guessing he isn't actually related. Like he's not a Story or something. Like maybe his mom had an affair or something. Because like, I don't know. Why would you find your cousin attractive? So anyways, Millie brings him to meet Aubrey on the ferry. And they both say that they look more like their mothers, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I've said that like 15 times. Also, it's noted that Aubrey keeps looking at her phone and is disappointed. Probably doesn't say this, but probably looking for a text from her boyfriend. Jonah also gets a text from an unknown JT. And I say that's also the initials of Jonah Theodore. And I said, is this a Parent Trap situation? Like sending the wrong twin to go see the grandma or whatever? So anyways, JT asks how it's going and Jonah wants to respond with F off, but just says fine. Millie runs off to get drinks while Jonah and Aubrey talk. And Aubrey brings up that her dad never talks about his dad. So her dad, Adam, does not ever talk about Anders, which is Jonah's father, which they're like the oldest and the next oldest. So anyways, she says her dad has the most in common with Allison, which is Millie's mom, and is protective over Archer, who's the baby. Jonah confirms that his dad Anders is the odd man out, or at least feels that way. Then they talk about Gran, the grandma, and how she only sent the one letter to offer them summer jobs, and then like Aubrey sent a bunch and never heard back, but Jonah didn't send any and never heard back, and she seems really cold, and it's really weird that they were all forced to come. So Millie returns with alcohol, which Aubrey spits out, and then Millie says and this part's like crazy. She says the entire family is built on secrets, right? It's a Story legacy. You guys probably have some juicy ones, spill or whatever. And both Jonah and Aubrey get nervous, but Millie focuses on Jonah. And then Millie says everyone has secrets. The question is whether you're keeping your own or someone else's. And Jonah says, can't it be both? And Millie's like, well, with you, I guess it can. And we find out what is going on with this. So I'm really excited to share that with you later. Chapter 4, Millie. So just to kind of get like a feel of the main characters' personalities, Millie calls her grandmother Mildred, Aubrey calls her Gran, and Jonah calls her nothing. So I might go between Gran, Mildred, the grandma, whoever. So too many people. So also, there's like another tidbit. Gull Cove Island is tiny. It's less than 14 miles across, and it's near Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, but it's supposedly like not as great. And I said, which also makes it near the stupid island from We Were Liars, which is also true because it talks about being near Martha's Vineyard. Blech. So Millie's wearing her grandfather's watch, which is always stuck on 3 o'clock, which I'm assuming that's going to come into play as being important. And the red dress that was her mother's in high school to make a dig at Mildred. Because Millie is not about this situation. She thinks it's like ridiculous that her grandmother does not talk to her kids and now wants them to come work for her, which she's not wrong. So Millie notes that she doesn't know much about her cousin's financial situation, but she knows that Aubrey's mom's a nurse and her dad's attempting to write his second book, like I said, and Jonah's dad is a financial advisor. And Millie found an article where former clients accused him of a Ponzi scheme, but ultimately, I guess legally, it was found that he had just given them bad advice. And this is so funny because these are like teen novels or young adult novels. She had to look up who Bernie Madoff was, and that makes me feel so old because I literally like wrote a paper about him in college. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, so just Google it. Ponzi scheme. It's a whole thing. I don't have enough time to explain it. So they exit the ferry and there's this old man that approaches them and thinks that Millie is her mother Allison. He's like clearly senile. And he tells her she should not have come and Mildred would be furious. And they try to explain the situation like, we're their kids, we were invited here. And the old man says that Adam, who is Aubrey's dad, had seeds of greatness, didn't he? But he wasted them. Foolish boy. Could have changed it all with a word. Which is like, what does that mean? Oh my gosh. So then Hazel Bader Clement comes to collect her grandfather. And we find out this old man is Dr. Fred Baxter. And he's like the Story family doctor and always make house calls. And he's still a friend of Mildred's, but he has dementia and stuff. So that's about to come into play at the end of where I left off. They're going to like go talk to him and try to figure out more. But anyways, she tells them, this is Hazel, that she did a report on the Story family for college and wants to expand on it by interviewing them sometime. Millie dodges this and says they'll be busy all summer because the Story family is full of secrets, so she doesn't want to like talk to someone about it. And Hazel leaves her number in case they want to be shown around, etc. They take a taxi to this humongous resort that the grandmother owns, and the cousins are supposed to register at Edward Franklin's office, which is who they had the correspondence with to come out in the first place. So they get to the office and they find someone named Carson Fine, and he's the head of hospitality. And he informs them that Edward Franklin left abruptly 2 days ago and they're still looking for a replacement. So like, ooh, he's the one that they were corresponding with and now he's gone randomly. What could that be? So Carson had no idea they were coming and had no idea like that there was any correspondence or whatever. But Millie shows them like, hey, we've been talking to Edward about this. We were invited. So Carson tells them, oh, your grandmother's in the ballroom. I'll go get her. So they're like freaking out and they meet Mildred for the first time. Millie thanks Mildred for inviting them. And Mildred tells Carson, like, take them to the dormitories. She'll talk to them at a more fitting time. And to Millie, it's clear that Mildred had no idea the cousins were even coming. So like, what the heck is going on? That's like the whole premise of the book. That's the biggest mystery we have. Clearly Mildred did not know they were coming. And this Edward Franklin did, and why is someone trying to get the cousins to the island? So then, before the chapter ends, we go on to Allison, which is Millie's mom, age 18, June 1996. I was 5. So anyways, it's 6 months after Allison's grandfather had passed away. Mildred is planning a party because the two oldest, Adam, Aubrey's dad, and Anders, Jonah's dad, are returning home from Harvard for the summer. Allison and Archer are talking about their brothers, and Archer idolizes Adam, and they talk about how Harvard has made Anders even more arrogant. And then Mildred has her assistant, Teresa, help plan the party, and she has a son named Matt, who's more or less like Allison's crush at the time. Clearly, that's not Millie's dad, though. Apparently, the Christmas before, Matt hooked up with Anders, that's Jonah's dad, on and off again girlfriend, Kayla, and now Anders, like, that's his sworn enemy. He hates him, clearly. So, this is all, like, Allison kind of telling us. So, Matt and Kayla dated for like 2 months, didn't work out. And she said that Anders barely even put any effort into the relationship in the first place. But so she kind of feels like he's overreacting, like there shouldn't be as much bad blood. So Matt is like there because his mom, Teresa's helping the party. And he asked Allison on a date just to go get coffee or something. And she's like, obviously really wants to. And she tells him maybe they could set it up sometime, but she shoos him away because she sees Adam coming, which means Anders close behind. And she doesn't want to like start any drama. And she says she knows her father, Abraham, who's obviously dead at this point, would say family first always if he found out that she was caught between her brother and her crush. Chapter 5, Aubrey. So Aubrey and Millie are rooming together in the dorm, and their grandmother took off to Boston for business, supposedly. That's just what they're told. And they hasn't talked to them since that first meetup. This is like, I think supposed to be like a week later. Anyways, the Gulf Cove Gazette ran an article, a new chapter to the stories. Grandchildren return to Gulf Cove. Da-da-da. I don't know why everyone cares so much, honestly, but whatever. So Aubrey tells us that she hasn't spoke to her boyfriend since before her flight took off to come here. And he just said, have a great summer. So like, obviously something's going on with that. She talked to her mom about her cousins, and her mom's like, oh, are you having fun? What did they like? Whatever. But Aubrey's father only asked about the grandma, which Aubrey has mostly been ignoring. So the cousins get invited by Donald S. Camden, that's the lawyer, to meet up for lunch. And I say, side note, their driver, like Donald's in a car or whatever, talks about Nickel Beach and how the kids would find coins, and it's rumored that the grandfather, Abraham, would hide coins for them to find. And Aubrey confirms to us that this story is true and says this generosity is what attracted her mother to her father originally, because they met in college and her dad told her mom this story. But she also implies that apparently it was not passed down to her dad like the mother had hoped. It's kind of depressing, but that's also awesome. Like, if I was super rich and I owned an island, I would totally go hide quarters for kids to dig up. That'd be so cool. So anyways, Aubrey also has the driver stop at Cuddy Beach, and Millie asks why, and Aubrey explains in her father's book that he talks about himself or whatever. He talks about a place called Cutter Beach. Coincidence? I think not. And there's a line in the book that says that's where it all started to go wrong. So she's just kind of like wondering if there's some truth to like, this is where something happened and that's why the grandma's mad. So, and it's just like kind of noted that it's just like this ugly little tiny beach, whatever. So they have lunch with Donald, and he informs the cousins that Mildred is not well enough to host them, and the hospitality she has given them already has been hard on her. Millie objects with snark, but he continues. So he offers them all summer jobs on a movie set in Boston, and Aubrey really wants to go because she has a crush on like the main character of this movie, which is kind of funny. But Millie drags Aubrey to the bathroom and explains that the situation is suspect, obviously. So she says that Mildred and Donald are clearly not on the same page and he wants to get rid of them, but can't like straight fire them. So Millie also believes that the grandmother didn't invite them, but she has been willing to let them stay. She told them, put them up in the dorms and stuff. So like something is going on. Like Mildred might be mad, but she's also like okay with them being there. And Donald clearly wants to get rid of them. Chapter 6, Jonah. So Jonah, okay, first of all, Jonah and Millie work at a restaurant, and then Aubrey is a lifeguard. So Jonah's at work at the restaurant before the lunch rush comes in, and then Millie also shows up to lunch, and he's like stuffing his face with this shrimp pasta, and Millie walks in, sits with him or whatever, and he knows that like she has not talked to him for like a week basically. So clearly she wants something. So the news is on, and it makes sense in the book, but it causes her to casually bring up Anders, which is Jonah's dad, and it's like, oh, has he ever come up against fraud in the financial industry? And Jonah realizes that she probably saw the article calling him Bernie Madoff of Rhode Island. And Jonah wonders if Millie knows that it's all true. The investments were all just a pyramid scheme. So like that's kind of a bomb because he was found like not guilty. And it talks like more in detail, but like people literally lost like their entire life savings. And then Jonah's like confirming to us that like Anders really is a jerk and totally like stole people's money. So anyways, the bartender, Chaz, that is noted as a functioning alcoholic, changes the subject before Jonah can answer and like express any of that. So Millie asks if Jonah received the follow-up letter from Donald, and basically the letter says that it urges them to reconsider the offer on the movie set because they'll pay 3 times what they're making at the resort. But they've all kind of agreed like something is up, so they're not going to take this deal. Also, there's random mention of a girl named Brittany who works there as well, and she has a huge crush on Jonah. And he says that he thinks she's cute, but wants to keep a low profile, so he's not, like, really interested. And she, like, awkwardly comes up and invites him to this party thing at the Dunes, which is, like, a bar/restaurant after work, but he declines. It's so, like, I don't know, uncomfortable and sad. So Millie is like, oh, well, we should have a cousin night with Aubrey, because Aubrey's been down about her boyfriend or whatever. And Jonah asks what she wants because clearly Millie's up for something, and she says, come and you'll find out or whatever. So he does show up at the Dunes for the party, and I said random, but his super friendly, potentially important roommate, Ephraim, is there. So whatever, they're playing pool and stuff, and then he is like really, really good at pool. He like sharks them basically. And then Millie like freaks out and like drags him out back by the dumpsters. And I have in all caps called it. So we're not to that part yet though. So this is random. I just want to throw this in here in case he comes back around. He also mentions this super preppy jerk kid, Reed, and he's like kind of checking out Aubrey. But anyways, okay, so here's the called it part. Millie drags him out to the back alley. She holds up his driver's license and she's like, "Who the hell are you, Jonah North? And why are you pretending to be my cousin?" And it's like, oh, like, who is this person? But then I kind of call this because of how he described her originally, like thinking she's attractive. And then I said, I'm so proud. So anyways, that's probably the only thing I'll figure out in this book. Chapter 7, Millie. So Millie said she figured it out that he wasn't her cousin because if you remember, one of the things she remembered like about her cousin when they were younger was he ate something he shouldn't have and had allergic reaction. Well, Jonah, the real Jonah, has a shellfish allergy. And the fake Jonah was pounding shrimp earlier. So Millie's like, I knew it. By the way, side note, I have a shellfish allergy. That is legit. Like, face swelling, throat closing immediately. And I didn't even get it till I was older, like maybe like 3 years ago. Ridiculous. I love shrimp too. Never again. And crab rangoons. It's ridiculous. Okay, everybody calm down. So Millie starts asking like the questions we all have. So Jonah explains the situation. So he goes to school with her cousin, who everyone calls JT. So for the sake of not being confused, Jonah is not really her cousin. JT really is her cousin. Okay, so they go to school together and they're not friends. This was like a business deal. So they both got into that science camp, but JT got a scholarship and Jonah didn't. And JT still went to the science camp and then Jonah came to the island in his place. But he does say that when Millie and Aubrey were texting and thought he was a jerk, they really were texting JT. And then JT pays Jonah installments. That's Jonah's his real name too. Like, so he got a third of it now because Jonah doesn't have money and stuff. And he has to take pictures from the resort to convince like the dad that he's going or whatever. So Jonah hopes that Millie will keep his secret, but says she can tell Aubrey. And this seems random, but she's like cold and he offers his jacket to her at one point and she refuses it because she's super mad. But before he leaves to go back to the dorms, he gives his jacket to her before she can like refuse. So like obviously there's something going on there and they like kind of like each other because they're super annoyed by each other. So anyways, it's the next night and Millie told Aubrey, who of course is shocked that like Jonah's not their cousin, but she hasn't told anyone else. So Carson's sitting with Millie at, I think it's at the restaurant, and trying to gossip to her about the Story family because he's just like a nosy whatever. And Millie's trying to get Edward Franklin's contact information from Carson, but he says, oh, privacy laws, can't do it. So another bartender is there, whose name I never wrote down, says that Carson goes to deal with something outside or something. So he says to Millie, if she wants to get in touch with Edward, she should go ask Chaz because they briefly dated. So Chaz is that functioning alcoholic bartender. So she's like, oh, does he work tonight? And he's like, no, he called in sick. He does that a lot because like obviously he's hungover and everyone knows he's a problem but Carson, but they like don't tell Carson because they want to look out for him. So Carson comes back with an older woman and Millie like for a second thinks it's her grandma, but it's really Teresa from the Backflash, Mildred's assistant, Teresa Ryan. And she has quote unquote news. Teresa says that next Sunday, Mildred would like to have the cousins over for brunch. So it's Saturday at this point. So not tomorrow, but a week from then. Mildred will still be out of town for 4th of July, but they should participate in the festivities, whatever. I thought that was going to be important. Like the next chapter is like, it's 2 days after 4th of July. So like whatever. So anyways, the Saturday after the Sunday brunch is the big summer gala that everyone talks about. They make a big deal about it. It's like her thing. That's like the only thing she comes out for publicly and stuff. She wants the cousins to leave that day open as well and attend as her guests. It's a formal event and the cousins can shop for outfits at the boutiques and put it on the story account. Millie also like mentions that like I can't buy anything from these boutiques. I'm so short. I have to have them like custom fitted. And Teresa's like, whatever, it's fine. But I just think it's funny because like, how short are you to have it like custom hemmed like that? So anyways, I just think of like Angela from The Office, where she has to shop at the American Girl doll store because Kids Gap is too flashy. Anyways, so Millie wants to understand why her grandmother disowned all her children. She wants to understand it because she wants to understand like why her mom, Allison, is the way she is and like why she keeps Millie at arm's length. And she thinks like by going to the gala, she can get more information. Chapter 8. This is our final chapter because if it is, it's about to go down. It is. I'm pumped. Okay. Everybody focus because this is awesome. It's 2 days after the 4th of July. It was Aubrey. I don't know if I said that. And Aubrey said she stopped even trying to contact her boyfriend and wonders if that means they broke up. It's like, yeah, probably. She thinks about... This is like a quote because it seems like really weird. So she's thinking and she says, she thinks about how she did something last year at the time seemed small, but it set off a chain reaction that made her family implode. And you're like, whoa, what does that mean? So Aubrey asked her mom if her dad ever talked about Cuddy Beach. And her mom says, like, not in a long time. Like, he hasn't talked about the island in a long time. But she always got the impression that he didn't like that beach for whatever reason. So Millie dismisses this and asks if they should tell someone about fake Jonah, because Millie's in there talking to Aubrey. And Aubrey doesn't really want to tell because he seems like an upgrade from their real cousin. And, like, who would they even tell that would care? And Millie's main concern is that if it was found out that he wasn't the real Jonah, or JT or whatever, that it would look bad for the girls for going along with it. So then they go over to a coffee shop and Aubrey runs into Hazel, who's the girl that did the report on their family. And she still wants to interview them and mentions that her grandfather is doing better and might be able to tell them some stories about their parents. Millie's skeptical, but Aubrey takes Hazel's number. So Aubrey also sees on the wall of this coffee shop a picture of her father and grandmother, and he has like his arm around her and they're young and like seem happy. And this makes her want to call and talk to her dad. Okay, so this makes me really mad. So he basically gives her the silent treatment. Like he answers, he's like, hello, yes, no. He's like super short with her, doesn't want to talk to her because she hasn't talked to him all week. And she says this is a quote from the book. This is what my father does when he's annoyed, withholds affection and approval to make his disappointment clear. And I said, no, that's what an abusive narcissist does, not a father. I'm not about that life. It's gross. I hate it. So anyways, she informs her father that they're meeting the grandmother for brunch like that next week or whatever. And he's like, took long enough. And Aubrey tells him like she's been in Boston or whatever. And he rants that she should be more proactive and should have taken her matters in her own hands. And did you ever think about talking to her assistant? And why are you always being so passive? That's always your problem. And he's just being gross and stupid. I say gross, but like, I don't even know the right word. I can't curse, or I would have every word to call this person. So Aubrey, when he's saying this, thinks about what Dr. Baxter had said. Adam had the seeds of greatness, didn't he? But he wasted them. Foolish boy, could have changed it all with a word. Okay, so this says, I audibly gasped and covered my mouth at the next part. Like, I'm screaming. So her dad's like, be proactive. I'm being a jerk. Aubrey says, do you mean proactive like when you effed my swim coach and knocked her up? Is that the kind of proactive I should be shooting for? I'm screaming. Like, what? Can you imagine just like... I don't know if it's having the same effect on the podcast, but when I read that, I literally like covered my mouth as I was reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, she just screamed that. That's crazy. So Adam, her dad, demands that she apologizes, but she says no and hangs up and turns her phone off. Like, I'm freaking out. So Millie's there, like they're just like outside this coffee shop, and Millie does her best, but admittedly is bad at comforting people. It's really funny because like, at one point, Aubrey's crying because she's like really upset about the situation. And Millie's like, I think I have a Kleenex or something. And she's like digging around in her purse. And she's like, I have a sunglass cleaner rag. It's kind of clean and it's soft. I hope this helps. And it's just like, it's me. I'm Millie in this moment. I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Your dad's a jerk. I don't know. Stop crying. So... This is where it's really sad. So Aubrey's like extra upset about the situation with her dad and her swim coach because she introduced them her sophomore year. Coach Matson was her coach since middle school, and Aubrey like idolized her. And then like her sophomore year, she like introduced them. She's like, look, my swim coach like thinks I'm great and loves me, and my dad thinks I'm great and loves me, and like so they like can relate over me. And she comes to realize that her coach and her father didn't think too much about her at all, apparently. So I have here, side note, I originally pictured this coach like in the beginning of the book when she's talking about her swim meet to be some burly woman from like Matilda, but she's apparently like this petite pretty blonde. Not for long. Anyways, because she's pregnant. I digress. So Aubrey says that her father broke the news a month ago and acted like it was something that happened to him instead of something he caused. Like, oh my goodness, like I'm just a victim. That's narcissist for you. So Aubrey never really talked about it, like the situation, because he didn't want to talk about it, clearly. And I said, I can't scream narcissist any louder. Like, I really can't. It's upsetting. Run, people. Run. If you're ever by a narcissist, just drop it. Just go. You're better than that. So anyways, Millie this part's awesome. Millie refers to Aubrey's dad and the swim coach as Uncle Midlife Crisis and Coach Homewrecker, which is fantastic. So Aubrey says that the coach is going to keep the baby and is going to have the baby in October. This is like summertime. And maybe he'll be the son that Adam always wanted, which is just like, oh, Aubrey. Also, yeah, if someone complains about like wanting a boy or a girl, some people weren't too happy that my daughter was a girl. Yeah, you can just like throw them out of your life. They're trash. So anyways, Aubrey quit the swim team, obviously. She said this was her last meet. But now we know it's because she didn't want to be around when everyone finds out, like, our swim coach is pregnant. That's weird. And then it's like, oh, it's Aubrey's dad's baby. It's a lot. Okay, so Aubrey says that she used to think there was something romantic about the story family's dysfunction, but she's realizing that they're all just miserable. So she kind of describes them. I'm just going to read it. So him, which she's referring to her father, him ripping our family apart out of a deep-seated need to feel special without working to accomplish anything. Aunt Allison pushing Uncle Toshi away and keeping Millie at arm's length. Uncle Anders having such a bad relationship with his only son that JT paid an imposter to defy him. And Uncle Archer falling out of touch for years on end due to one addiction or another. Spot on. So Aubrey stops crying and realizes they're standing in a graveyard because like they were out on the street and then she's having this blow up thing with her dad. So they're trying to go to this private area. And Millie says, well, look who we ended up by, and it's their grandfather's gravestone, and the gravestone reads, Abraham Story, beloved husband, father, and philanthropist. Family first always is like the quote, which we know Allison says too. Aubrey says her father was right about one thing. They should stop wondering what happened and do something, be proactive. And Millie suggests that they talk to Chaz to try to get in contact with Edward, but Aubrey suggests that they give Hazel an interview and ask some questions of their own. And that's where I left off. And it's not technically the end of the chapter because it's supposed to go into Allison's back in time part, but this was like way too good to not end on. And I'm hitting like right about where I wanted for time. So I'm really excited. Let's get into lingering questions. Now, I don't have too many because, like, all the obvious questions. What's going on with the grandma? What's going on with whatever, like, her, whatever. So, my main question is, who wants them at the island? And I'm just, like, random guess. I'm going to say Teresa for some reason. I don't know. Just because. Like, maybe her son. I don't know. Whatever. Something with her son. That's my guess, just for fun. And then, random lingering question. I want to know what the heck's going on with Aubrey's boyfriend. Like, I know it's probably, like, not that important to the bigger thing, but like it's still weird. So theories, I was like, maybe the kids being like the parents of the cousins were involved in the passing of their father or something. And then my other question is like, did something maybe happen to Matt, who is Allison's like crush when they were young and Teresa's son? Because like, I don't know, we haven't met him yet, and clearly Allison didn't marry him, and like maybe they did something. Then that would be motive for Teresa wanting them there. I have no idea. So this whole thing's crazy. So in closing, thanks for listening. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the Jolly Reader Podcast. Subscribe to get notifications for part 2 and part 3. If you're on Apple, please leave a review to help other crewmates find this podcast. And even better, share with whoever, whenever. And if you like secondhand embarrassment, stay tuned for the outtakes. Talk to you next week for part 2 of The Cousins. Until we sail again, this has been The Jolly Reader. Bon voyage. Hey, you made it to the outtakes. Let's do it. Testing. Is my mic gone? My whole family's home, so hopefully they're not too loud and they're super, awesome. I just cleaned my whole house and mowed my lawn, so I'm tired, but let's do it. This book's awesome. Our main character, who's 17, I will be calling Millie, which is what they call her in the books. I also spell it like I-E sometimes. Why? It's Y. Anyways. And Millie talks about hair on my mic. He's super self-centered. Okay, I already said that. Recently successful, whatever. Then my phone goes off. Which I believe is Archer. There are so many people. No, Anders. Sorry. Sneezels. Okay. Let's see here. Ripping our family apart about... Sorry. I'm just going to read it. Gosh.
I am Allie, and you are listening to my mom.